One of the shocking facts that came out of this year's presidential election that remains shocking is that the president-elect, who is taking office in 21 days, did lose the popular vote by over 2.8 million votes. Clinton with the edge in terms of votes by a lot. And that came, by the way, while she was the first female major nominee in American history, and she got more votes. But that aside, the fact is everyone who plays this game knows it's not about who puts more points on the board. It's just not. It's about where the points are. Secretary Clinton lost in the Electoral College, so she loses the race, proving once again that the presidential election in our country is not a direct democracy. It's not decided by majority vote. We know that. The founders didn't design it that way. And by the way, neither is the Senate. Each state, of course, gets 2 senators, no matter how many people live in the state, Democrat or Republican. So when you actually just think about it, the closest thing we have in our federal government to a democracy is the House of Representatives. And then think about this. In recent years, voting for your House representative means voting in districts that actually look like this, or this, or this. We have Republicans in large part to thank for many of the oddly shaped gerrymandered districts popping up across the country after the 2010 census. To be clear, both parties do this, but the Republicans have been doing it very effectively, part of an effort called the Redistricting Majority Project, or they call it REDMAP for short. In 2010, Republicans poured money into local state legislative races and governor's races so that when Republicans won those local races, they could then, as a very clear strategy, reshape the congressional districts to make sure Democrats could get siphoned off into some wacky-looking districts, and Republicans would then pick up extra wins elsewhere. In 2012, that effort paid off, but it was subtle. Look at it like this. President Obama won his second term. Democrats did keep the Senate majority. But then in the House races, where Democrats won the popular vote, think about that, 2012, more votes for Democrats, 1.4 million. And nevertheless, it was Republicans who held onto the House majority, not by a little, not like the Electoral College sometimes when it's close, but with 33 seats. So while more people voted Democratic, redistricting helped Republicans hold that big edge in the House. It's a far cry from one man, one vote, a far cry from what we consider to be a democracy. But redistricting takes place every 10 years. The next census is coming up in 2010. Democrats now gearing up to fight back against what happened in 2010. Outgoing President Barack Obama and his former Attorney General Eric Holder making redistricting reform their priority in the years ahead. Holder chairing a new group called the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. And the president's already been briefed about that group's progress and how he can help flip those local races from red to blue in the upcoming 2017 and 2018 midterms to build for that 2020 map redraw. Now, the idea is that Republicans have been good at the redistricting game. Some liberals have been complaining about that, and Republican operatives more or less responded by saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Now Democrats are trying to change the game, and this Obama Holder group just tapped their own operative to run the effort, the kind of field strategist who usually works behind the scenes, who you don't see doing the pundit laps on television, but she did agree to come out of the woodwork for her first interview since being named to this post. She's the former head of the Democrats' House Re-election Committee, Kelly Ward. Ms. Ward, thanks for joining us for the interview.
Thanks, Ari. It's great to be with you.
What is the plan?
Well, as you said, Democrats are preparing to fight back. This is the first time that Democrats have come together to have a comprehensive strategy focused on redistricting and how we can make sure Democrats are at the table as decisions are being made and that we have a level playing field on which Democrats can compete. It's also the first time that we have had an entity within the Democratic Party solely focused on redistricting, meaning we're pulling together all of the different House and Senate and legislative leaders of our party, but we, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, will be solely focused on our redistricting strategy 100% of the time from now through the redistricting process.
And how is President Obama involved in this?
Well, as your previous clip showed, he is very committed to rebuilding the party from the ground up, and that includes the local races, the legislative races. It also includes making sure that redistricting happens in a fair way. We have seen Republicans rig the system with their gerrymandering, often illegal gerrymandering. And President Obama knows firsthand the impact of that. He's been dealing with a Congress where the Tea Party Republicans elected in these very conservative, unfair districts have a stranglehold on the process, and where they have made obstruction their entire strategy against him. And their gerrymandering is part of why they're doing that and how they're maintaining that control. So he has seen firsthand the impact, and now we are thrilled as a Democratic Party and for our country that in his post-presidency, he's focusing on this and making it a priority.
And yet the flip side, which people who are in the Democratic Party sometimes talk about, and certainly a lot of progressive reformers talk about, is just adding more gerrymandering isn't necessarily good. And some Democrats have cottoned to that. Take a look at, for example, the Florida 5th District. This is Corrine Brown, drawn obviously in a weird way. That is not contiguous. It doesn't look like a community. It doesn't look like something you'd draw for any normal reason. And yet the Democrat there, Representative Brown, fought to keep it that way after the Republicans redrew it that way. So are you also going to be defending those kind of maps?
Well, our goal is to make sure that the process is fair, that Democrats have a seat at the table, and that Democrats can compete on a fair playing field. And we have not seen that because of the Republican gerrymandering. And Florida is a perfect example of this. The Florida voters passed an initiative giving the legislature boundaries for drawing the maps, and the Republican legislators completely ignored those regulations put on them by the voters and passed what was then later determined to be an illegal map. And in fact, 4 of the 9 seats that Democrats picked up in the House in 2016 were because of redistricting lawsuits that overturned illegal Republican maps, including in Florida. And we know that when that happens, Democrats do better. Democrats generally pick up more seats. When the process is more fair, Democrats do better. And that is really our goal. And that's what we'll stay focused on.
Right. So you're almost sort of getting at the fact that just a return to a more majority rule system would actually be politically beneficial to the Democratic Party and defensible for those thinking about it ethically if it is simply democratic and not sort of rigged. Kelly Ward, interim executive director of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. It's a mouthful. It sounds more boring than it is important, and yet I think we've discussed why it's important. Thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. Much more to come tonight, so please stay with us.